explore the myth of Sleeping Whisper, a journey through space and time, where the Maya eclipse belief has grown over thousands of years on every ancient cliff. Have you ever wondered, in the moment the sun goes to sleep, is there any power that makes thousands of souls watch, quietly cultivating hope to welcome the light back? Let the water of the source lead you into the dreamland of the jungle and the Mayan temple, where every ritual moment, every lullaby and dance of light is an epic of eternity. From the whisper of dawn to the sacred lullaby, from the cosmic dance to the silent legacy. If you are eager to explore untold mysteries and want each of your videos to be a sacred journey, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Origin Waterdrop channel. Together we will continue to nurture the flame of discovery, a small drop of water, 1,000 inspirations. And then, under the quiet crescent moon, the legendary Maya journey ended. But the belief and desire to explore still awaken in each of our hearts. Thank you for joining Guide Nchisi Koyengan to listen to every whisper of the past, every beat of the universe, to preserve and pass on the flame of knowledge together. If you also feel your heart warmed by this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Guide Nchisi Koyengan channel so you don't miss the next journeys. See you in new dewdrops, where the legendary source is waiting for us to discover. The night seemed still sleepy when the first breeze blew through the old forest canopy, caressing the leaves that gently swayed like fluttering eyelids. In the pitch-black darkness, only a flock of small birds woke up, flapping their wings and leaving their nests, creating a series of small chirping rhythms, like a shy greeting to the dawn that was about to break. Quietly, the pale moon finally retreated, giving way to the long dance of the early morning light. As the first slender rays of sunlight penetrated the gaps in the forest, they painted sparkling streaks on the ancient stone slabs, like a new silver cloak spread across the space. Each tiny speck of dust in the air suddenly became countless light spirits, sparkling and dancing, instilling in people a feeling that was both vague and mysterious. Here, on top of the ancient Mayan temples, the ancients believed that dawn was not simply the beginning of a new day, but the miraculous resurrection of the sun god, a journey from darkness back to glory. In the midst of the quiet space, a figure appeared, tall and slender, wearing a hand-woven cloak of jade-colored silk. It was the priest, the keeper of the sacred fire of civilization. Every morning he came to the sacred stone platform where the sun was carved and ancient grooves contained the curses and mysteries of the ancestors. With trembling hands of emotion and reverence, the priest gently touched the stone surface, listening to the breath of time. The sound of stone touching stone echoed softly like a whisper from the past. "Wake me up so that the light can continue to shine on the world." The priest lit 3 incense sticks, each representing 3 realms: heaven, human, ghost. The incense smoke curled and drew vague curves, gently spreading over the foot of the stone pedestal, blending with the morning sunlight. In that moment he not only saw white smoke, but also felt the warmth pulsing from the other side of space. Gentle yet powerful, like the heartbeat of the universe reviving. On the stone wall, the Mayan characters appeared clearly in sharp grooves, telling the story of the journey of the sun god through the night, where darkness surrounded, where the soul of the universe stretched itself to victory. The leader of the birds let out a long cry, signaling the official start of a new day. The deep and high notes of the wooden flute resonated, blending with the light rhythm of the buffalo-hide drum, weaving a symphony of dawn. The first beats of the drum were like the heartbeat of the universe, steady and decisive, then slowly spreading, echoing throughout the space. The ancient Maya considered this sound as the call of the gods, inviting the sun to awaken. In the priest's heart, each beat of the drum stirred up a feeling of excitement, looking forward to a miracle. Suddenly, the thorns of the forest shimmered under the bright light. The temple towers sparkled with pale gold. At that moment, the high priest took the scale of light from the stone pedestal and placed it in the palm of his hand like a heavenly pearl. He whispered softly, "Return, King of Light. Dispel the darkness, awaken life." The light from the pearl reflected in his eyes, causing the strange lines carved in the stone to come to life, dancing under the new sunlight. The flute stopped abruptly, giving way to a sacred moment. The entire jungle seemed to be silent, save for the whisper of the wind through the leaves. At the feet of the high priest, the small footprints of monkeys and wild animals suddenly fell silent, showing that it was not only humans who had been waiting for this moment. Every living being, consciously or unconsciously, had participated in the great ceremony of creation. Light now filled the air. The sun had returned to its highest position, chasing away the last remnants of the night. The priest's heart was filled with joy. The ancients had heard his prayers. The gods had answered. He bowed deeply, as if bowing before an infinite sacred realm. In his heart, he knew that the pearl of light would be passed on to his descendants, so that they could continue the work of preserving this sacred faith and tradition. Before leaving the stone platform, the priest held the pearl tightly, held it to his chest and took a deep breath, as if to gather all the essence of the dawn. The music played again, this time more intense, as if to encourage. Begin the journey, take this story everywhere. The sound of drums, flutes, wind, and the whispering of the stone cymbals blended into an eternal melody. guiding the audience from the jungle to the legendary heart of the Mayan civilization. And so, in the pristine light of dawn, a new page of the ancient story is turned. The journey to learn more about the belief in the eclipse, the belief that is engraved on every stone, every breath, and every song, officially begins. Now, you, together with the priest, step into the door of time, ready to listen to the mysteries hidden in the heart of the stone and in the heart of the universe. Part 2. Ancient stone inscriptions. As he stepped off the sacred stone platform, the priest carried with him the pearl of light, a sign of the rising dawn. His slender shadow was cast on the ancient stone floor, guiding the way through a narrow bend that held the breath of history. The walls before him were no longer mere lifeless blocks of stone. They were silent witnesses to generations, carrying messages from century to century. The morning light filtered into every nook and cranny, reaves on the intricate grooves like intricate spiderwebs that traced the shape of a fiery serpent coiled around the sun, the silhouette of a pissing bird matching an ancient constellation. Each line was dark and light, each patch of dew-drenched gray stone still sharp despite the millenniums of wear on its surface. The priest paused, placing his hand on the hollow carving, trying to feel the echo of the words. Here, the sun was born, and was reborn. The narrator's voice suddenly rings out in the viewer's ears, as soft as a gentle stream. Bend down, put your ear close to the stone, and listen to the whispers of your ancestors. The whispers seem to come from the cracks themselves, the sound of rocks colliding with history, the sound of wind blowing through the ancient citadel, the Mayan yearning for astronomy and religion, the surrounding landscape of tangled vines. The shyly blooming tropical flowers creates a cool green curtain, somewhat insulating the outside world, making the priest feel as if he is lost in a sacred realm. He slowly took out a rare feather brush used to sweep away dust, and painted a pale color to recreate the engraving on the parchment. Each feather touched the stone surface, caressing it as if to caress the memory. Each stroke is a note in the cosmic symphony. The narrator continues, and we are the nameless musicians, invited to play. In that moment, the sound of the brush seemed to draw a vortex of time, taking the audience on a journey of decoding. The priest's eyes followed each character, its spirals that signaled the solar cycle. Stars and galaxies represented by neat dots, and fiery serpent symbols of energy transfer writhing around. In ancient times, he whispered, the Maya did not simply observe eclipses as natural phenomena. They saw in them the vital dance of the universe, the interplay of light and darkness, of birth and death. The camera pans wide, revealing a long wall where the characters are arranged like ribbons of memory. The gaps between the two carvings are filled with red lipstick. Though faded by time, it is still enough to make one imagine the image of a sacred fire. The background sounds change. The delicate sound of a flute carries the wind from the rocks, blending with the clear sound of a drum like a bell calling the soul. Suddenly, the high priest straightened, his eyes blazing like torches. He raised the gem to his shoulder, letting its light penetrate a hidden engraving. At that moment, the seemingly meaningless characters flashed as if awakened. A new symbol appeared, the shape of a newborn baby suckling at its breast, above which a rising sun was revealed. Born from darkness, the narrator cried. The sun was reborn, opening the endless cycle. The flute stopped abruptly, leaving only the sound of the wind whistling through the cracks in the rocks. The priest gently took his brush and quickly sketched the symbol onto the parchment, each stroke hasty but sure, as if his heart were beating with the rhythm of history. The narrator whispered, this symbol is at the center, like the heart of the universe. Every time an eclipse occurs, the Maya see the sun's new birth, a declaration. Even when darkness falls, life always returns. The morning light slanted, casting the priest's shadow across the carved wall. He stepped back, surveying the work as a whole, a sacred map of celestial cycles. The words mingled with his breath. This wall, with its lines piled up through the dust of time, is an open book for those who know how to listen. Each letter is a gentle word, a torch to light the way. Finally, the priest placed the gem on the stone pedestal embellishing the carving. He bowed his head, clasped his hands, as if bidding farewell to the souls who had carved it here. Our ancestors have given us the flame of knowledge. Let us preserve and pass it on, so that future generations can still hear the whispers of ancient stone. In the middle of the ancient jungle, when the morning sunlight had dissipated and the gentle breeze opened the leaves, the priest could not take his eyes off the giant relief erected high above. On it, the image of the Maya universe appeared in 3 layers. The starry sky, where the gods resided, the human world where we are walking step by step, and the dark abyss, where the souls of the deceased roamed. Each layer was like a musical note in the cosmic symphony, creating an endless dance between light and darkness. He lifted the gem of dawn into his palm, and its light filtered through the cracks in the stone, highlighting the delicate contours, the spirals, and the intricate symbols. The narrator's voice spoke softly, as if to soothe. Look closely. The world of the Maya does not exist on a flat surface. They look up to the sky, where the eagle and the fire serpent, intermediaries between mortals and the divine, spin to the music of the stars. They look down to the earth, where trees grow, rivers flow, and people, the shepherds of sacred fire, weave life. The relief is divided into 3 distinct levels. The top level is made up of round dots symbolizing constellations, with the image of two large stars, representing the sun god and the moon god. The middle level is the image of a giant tree reaching up, its leaves spreading like a spider web connecting all living beings. And the bottom level is carved with a fiery serpent, its head raised high, its teeth sharp, symbolizing the power of darkness, resurrection, and transformation. The priest slowly raised his hand and gently brushed away the dust, revealing patches of faded vermilion stone, like drops of warm blood still clinging to the abyss. He whispered to himself, 3 worlds, 3 melodies, but 1 epic poem. Then he turned to his invisible audience, smiled mischievously, and continued, "Do you hear it? The echoes of the 3 worlds are whispering, inviting me to enter the endless vortex." The wooden flute resounded again, soft but clear, like a lullaby to the universe. The melody was slow, fast, evoking the dance of the eagle spreading its wings in the sky, then sliding down to the lower world, swooping down through the branches of an ancient tree. The drum beats continued echoing through each layer of the relief, making us imagine the river of darkness in the abyss beneath the feet of the fire snake, where the souls of the deceased lost their way, waiting for the guidance of the gods. In the shimmering light, the priest drew a snake-shaped curve in the air, as if illustrating the journey of rebirth. When the sun rises, it passes through the first heaven, absorbs the starlight, then falls to the second heaven, where the great green tree is full of life. To give strength to the earth to revive, finally it plunges into the abyss, where the darkness contains a strong will to resurrect. And from there it bounces back, drawing an eclipse. He tapped the pearl on the palm of his hand, creating a resounding sound, as if affirming that mystical truth. The camera pans slowly over the stone statues on either side of the relief. A goddess carrying a pitcher of sacred spring water, a male god holding a scepter of fire. They seem to guard the threshold between the realms, maintaining the balance of the universe. The priest lowers his voice as if sharing a secret. "You know, that pitcher of water is the soul of the heavenly river, which flows around the great tree to water the 3 realms, and the scepter of fire. It is the key to awakening the colors of the sun every time it sets into the night." The close-up image of the fire snake carved into the stone highlights each scale, each soft curve mixed with power. Those scales, under the morning sunlight, sparkle like small gems, symbolizing the potential energy beneath the peaceful outer shell. The narrator echoes, "Darkness is not simply an enemy. It is a dark night, where inner strength is forged, so that when the last ray of light appears, that vitality blooms more intensely than ever." The space suddenly became quiet, except for the rustling of the forest leaves and the priest's breathing. He bowed his head and clasped his hands before the relief, as if paying homage to the 3 realms. Heaven gives inspiration. Earth nourishes hope. Hell forges will. Then he looked straight at the audience. "Now, you have heard the lullaby of the 3 worlds. Do you dare to step forward, to discover which boundary the sun will cross next? Remember, in each realm, our story echoes. The music rises to a crescendo, the flute blending with the drums and lithophones, creating a 3-dimensional soundscape. The journey of the sun and of us continues, from one realm to another, until light and darkness merge into one eternal melody." The last rays of sunlight hit the relief, marking the end of the explanation of heaven and earth. The narrator's voice softens and then slowly concludes. "Take a moment to pause, to feel the beat of the universe in your heart, and when you are ready, join me on this journey deeper, where the Maya wisdom paints the hidden mysteries." And so the door to the next part opens, inviting us to discover the intermediary character, the keeper of the sun god's fire, to the legendary story that still whispers in our ears in the quiet space of the ancient temple. Part 4. The sun god's firekeeper in the dawn light that had just awakened from the darkness of night. The priest handed the gem of light to another figure, a shadowy figure, wearing an ash-gray cloak, holding a torch yellowed by the years. It was Firelight, the keeper of the sun god's fire, the one who continued the tradition, keeping the sacred beat of the sun from ever stopping, in the story that was carved by stone and woven by the universe. Firelight was the bridge that brought light from the invisible world into the hearts of all living things. Analua stepped onto the stone platform, his eyes sparkling like fireflies in the quiet night. He bowed his head to thank his ancestors, clasping his hands before the grave carved with stars and fire snake scales. The torch in his hand lightly touched the gem of dawn, and a clear blue flame burst forth, quivering as if holding the entire autumn sky in its grip. That fire did not burn but was warm and pure, like the breath of a miniature universe. The camera zooms in on the flickering fire, revealing each vein of stone reflecting a mysterious blue light. The narrator's voice softly rings out. "In the hands of the fire, the flame is more than just fuel. It is the soul of the sun which has traveled through the 3 realms, absorbing the essence of the stars, the mystery of the great tree, and the fierce will of the abyss. From here that flame will be lit into smaller torches then passed from hand to hand, spreading through people's hearts so that each heart becomes a shining platform awaiting the dawn." The background music changed to a low and high tone. The sound of the lithophone echoed as if echoing from the cave on the other side of the forest. Analua walked around the temple courtyard, bringing with him a shimmering smoke, creating a faint light in the dim space. He stopped in front of 3 stone pillars carved with constellations, raised the torch high, and let the flame touch the constellations of Thien Ho, Thien Ho, Thien Long. Each time the flame touched, a brilliant blue light flared up, like the dance of a myriad of stars descending. The mischievous voice rang out softly. Lightfire is not afraid of fire. He plays with it like a child with a candle on a winter night. But do not let it burn too fiercely, because only in that moment will the darkness know its way back. He smiled, radiating warmth like the morning sun. Viewers could almost feel the warmth spreading through the screen. Analua bent down, scooped a spoonful of sacred spring water from the stone pedestal, and sprinkled it lightly on the base of the fire. Steam immediately rose, creating a white smoke that mingled with the blue flames. The narrator's voice was poetic. Water and fire, 2 seemingly incompatible elements, combined to balance the universe. Water initiates, fire nurtures, together celebrating the miracle of life. The sound of the buffalo-hide drum resounded as Analua climbed the steps leading to the inner shrine. The dome depicted a radiant sun, and in the middle stood the sun god, his eyes blazing. Analua bowed his head solemnly, clasped his hands behind his back, and was deep in thought before the stone throne. The camera slowly panned over his face. His eyes were bright, but filled with thought. The narrator's voice becomes quiet, suggesting sacred responsibility. Every dawn, the firekeeper's mission is not only to spread the fire to the community, but also to be a bridge between people and the sky. The fire must understand the cycles of the stars, must feel the breath of the earth, and must listen to the teachings of the stone carvings. Because only by understanding can people maintain a strong faith. He pulled out a tightly rolled parchment from his robe. It was a series of meticulously written astronomical characters. On it, mysterious symbols indicated the date and time of the eclipse, the positions of the planets accompanying the sun. Analua unrolled the scroll, pointing and explaining to the disciples beside him. His voice was serious but still warm, like a teacher and student telling an adventure story. Here we see traces of the dance of creation. Today the star will touch this line of longitude, go through that cycle, and then the sun will bow its head in darkness for a moment. Prepare your hearts to receive the divine moment. The disciples took notes attentively, their eyes shining with joy. They understood their responsibility, to spread the fire, to preserve the faith, and to bring the story of the eclipse to every corner of the village. The sound of the wind rustling through the tiled roofs seemed to blend with the breath of knowledge being passed on. At that moment the camera panned to show the scene of the torchbearer walking around the temple yard. The sound of drums mixed with the clear singing. O eternal sun, O immortal light, O eternal heartbeat, lean on my hand. The singing hums, like a lullaby for the sun to return. The fire leads the way, its torch high, guiding the procession into the ritual journey. Each step seems to draw a circle of light around the temple, emphasizing the endless cycle. As the procession stopped before the temple's archway, Analua shouted 3 drum beats, each one echoing like an oath. We light the fire to keep the faith. We keep the faith to light the hope. The music rose to a crescendo, the drums and singing intertwined. The firelight drew shimmering swirls in the forest night. The narrator whispered, in this moment each flame is a ray of light that lights up faith, soothes the fear of the long night. The firekeeper not only keeps the fire, but also keeps the hope of the soul. When the blue flame suddenly died down, giving way to the first light of dawn, Analua concluded the ceremony and lowered the torch to the altar. He bowed his head solemnly. The drum beat slowed down and then stopped. The crowd fell silent, breathing evenly, looking up at the sky. All eyes were on the sky, where they had just witnessed the miracle of the fire procession. The gentle voice concludes, and then, as dawn breaks, the flames from the torches will continue to spread throughout the village, carrying the pulse of the universe into every roof, every breath. The journey of the firekeeper has just ended, but the story continues. In the hearts of each person, and in the eternal heart of the Maya civilization, the camera slowly pulls back, leaving the temple scene in the early morning light. With the torch extinguished, the orb of light resting on the altar, and the silhouette of firelight quietly stepping into the leafy shade. Part 5. Solar Eclipse. When the sun sleeps, the midday sky suddenly resounded with a low flute, like a quiet lullaby for the Sun King's short nap. The bright sunlight gradually faded, no longer harsh, but drifting like a thin silk thread drifting. In that moment, all of nature seemed to stop breathing. The leaves of the forest suddenly stopped rustling. The birds stopped singing. The lake became as calm as a sparkling silver mirror. The priest and firelight stood side by side on the ceremonial platform, witnessing the miracle. Before their eyes, the sun, its golden halo, was slowly being swallowed by a mysterious celestial body. The dark moon rose from the netherworld, silently covering half of the sun's halo, leaving a silver crescent. The narrator whispered in the audience's ears. When the crescent moon touches the sun's halo, the world suddenly becomes a watercolor painting. Pale yellow blends with dark gray, creating a scene that is both heartbreakingly beautiful and terrifyingly quiet. People gathered around the temple courtyard, eyes looking up at the sky with all sorts of emotions. Some opened their mouths in amazement, others closed their eyes and clasped their hands to pray for peace from the gods. Anhalua held up the torch, emitting a pale blue light that soothed the fearful memories. Like a soft blanket when the night shed its layer of sunlight, the sound of the da-da drum resounded slowly, each beat like a deep breath of the earth, awakening joy deep in the soul. The moment of total eclipse, when the moon completely covers the sun, is also the moment of the end of the brief darkness. The earth is plunged into the twilight of the day. Silvery light, purple and blue, are momentarily flooded. Spots of light called rings of fire corona appear around the edge of the moon, like the radiant silver crown of the Queen of Darkness. The voice of the narrator is as gentle as a lullaby. Look up there, what do you see? It is not the end, but a moment of reconciliation when light and dark toast each other, before the sun is reborn. Under the magical sky, the priest looked up, opened his arms, and welcomed the night and day. His breathing was slow and steady, as if he wanted to connect with the rhythm of the universe. His voice was soft. The Maya saw this moment as a divine slumber. When the sun spirit withdrew to gather energy for its glorious return, the shoulders of the disciples' robes fluttered in the breeze that blew through the dome. Firelight pulled the green gem from the table, its light shining like a reminder. In the darkness, the light within is brighter. He threw the gem into the air, where it spun and landed on the high priest's shoulder. As if passing on the responsibility of keeping the fire alive, even when the sky was asleep, the two masters exchanged encouraging glances that seemed to say, "We will guard the faith of the thousands of eyes that are turned here." The drumbeat suddenly changed its tune, becoming more intense, as if awakening a desire from within the dark shell. Boom, boom, boom. Amidst the bustling drumbeat, a humming song rang out from behind. "Oh silver moon, please let me sleep, so that when I wake up, life will be here." That strange sound was like a prayer, allowing the sun to rest, to be still and to fill itself with new vibrations. The narrator's voice rose mischievously. "Do you feel your heart sink? That is a sign of connection. When you and the universe stop and share a precious moment of silence." The climax lasted no more than 7 minutes, but it seemed that 100 years would not be enough to contain the emotions. When and only when the celestial body gradually withdrew, allowing the first golden halo to flash back, did all living beings burst into joy. Heaven and earth exploded with the sound of drums, clapping hands, and joyful shouts. The narrator said softly, "The sun has awoken. Behold, the storm of light spreads, painting a second dawn in the same day." The golden rays of sunlight returned, sweeping away the purple of the brief sunsets. The birds chirped again, the leaves of the forest rustled joyfully as if they were dancing. The priest bowed to the gods, clasped his hands before his chest, and raised the pearl high. "Thank you, King Sun, for waking up. Thank you, Moon, for guiding." Firelight laughed, and lit the green torch again, as if welcoming the return of light. Before stepping down from the stage, the priest turned to the invisible audience, his eyes filled with joy and admiration. "You see, between darkness and light there is a delicate bridge, that is faith, hope, and the solidarity of the community. When the sun was sleeping, we were awake, guarding the light in our souls." The narrator paused, giving way to the warm breath of a new dawn. The camera pans away, revealing the temple sparkling in the returning sunlight, with incense smoke swirling around 3 stone pillars, birds flying in the sun. A final whisper is heard. "The eclipse is just a short nap for the sun. Our story has only just begun. When you are ready for another night of the legendary Mayan journey, write OK to us to explore the marks on the temple wall. The remaining secrets of the carved stone." Part 6. The mark on the temple wall. The sunset fell, dyeing the entire ancient stone archway pink. After the brilliant eclipse ceremony, the priest in firelight walked into the corridor leading deep into the inner sanctum, where thousands of years ago, chants had echoed. The space here was imbued with the color of incense smoke mixed with the dust of time. Each step seemed to carve deeper into the enchanting fabric of memories. The 2 parallel walls, long and narrow, were carved with overlapping marks, undulating dragons, winged birds, and countless constellations drawn in delicate strokes. Each carving bore the mark of the Mayan artisans, taking us through each astronomical cycle, each falling grain of dust of history. The priest paused, pressed his ear to the cool stone surface, and listened to the stagnant echo, not just the sound of stone touching stone, but the whisper of the blood of time. Anhalua smiled slightly, lightly touching his finger to the image of the fire snake, symbolizing the power of resurrection. The skin under his finger felt every bump, every groove, as if absorbing layer upon layer of energy. The narrator's voice rang out softly. "Each curve of the fire serpent is a cosmic vortex, swirling and darting into infinity, destroying and regenerating. We touch here not just to read, but to feel the pulse of time." The camera zoomed in, capturing the scales of the fiery snake, shimmering as the candlelight swayed. The priest took a thin cloth from his pocket and gently wiped away the old dust, revealing a patch of red rock, the remaining vermilion mark of the earth's blood. The vermilion oil streaks, though faded, were still bold like a secret oath. "Conquer the darkness, bring light." Next, Anhalua's eyes stopped at the image of the divine bird, half falcon, half penguin, spreading its wings out of the stone frame, as if about to take off. He raised the green gem to eye level, letting its light shine on the carving, making the stone feathers come alive as if breathed with soul. The voice narrated quietly, "The Maya bird is not simply a falcon. It is a mediator, a cosmic messenger, flying up into the sky to collect the starlight, then bringing it back down to earth, to sow it in mortal hearts." The priest slowly drew two curved lines on the parchment, imitating the lines of a bird's wings, then looked at Firelight. "Let us keep this image as a mark of hope, because every time there is an eclipse, the divine bird takes away the darkness and returns light to the world." Firelight nodded, his face shining with deep faith. The wide corridor led them to a small room, where the astronomical chart was carved on the wall. The map was drawn in a maze-like complexity. The water tears, the water serpent, the sun of destruction, the birth of life. Each constellation was marked with a neat circle and a faint crimson and charcoal symbol. The narrator's voice rang out excitedly. "This is the heart of the Maya cosmos, a place where the ancients recorded the journey of the celestial sphere, measured time, and overcame challenges." The markings on the walls not only helped them predict eclipses, but were also a declaration of the power of humans to connect with the heavens and the earth. Analua gently stroked the map, as if gliding over the surface of a calm lake. His eyes were pensive, as if he were imagining the scene of ancient Mayan astronomers setting up compasses, placing round stones, and observing the stars through the eye of a needle. The priest lit another stick of incense, letting the smoke swirl up to the ceiling, creating a faint white streak of light among the dark stone. In the mystical space, the story is immersed. Do you notice anything? These circles are not random. They are the footprints of time, imprinted in the universe. Each circle is a cycle of the sun, from rising, to setting, to shining again. Suddenly, the priest placed the green gem in the center of the map, a sun-shaped concave stone circle. A small flame flared up, making the concave stone glow like a spiritual realm opening up. It seemed as if the entire wall breathed a sigh of relief, releasing a beam of light through the crack. The sound was like the resonance of countless gongs, then suddenly died down, leaving only the heavy breathing of the two spiritual masters. Light slowly tapped the gem against the stone. Time is the stuff of the universe, but it is also a wonderful meditation. When I tap, I awaken memories. His voice lingered, not resonating for a long time. Only the sound of the gem rolling on the stone could be heard. Next, the two of them entered the last corner of the room, where a large stone slab was engraved with a rectangle of hundreds of pictographic characters, a person meditating on a lotus platform. Below was a halo of light, with sparks of stone shooting out. Next to it was a person carrying the burden of heaven and earth as if steering a boat of light. The priest bent down, using the tip of a wooden pen to lightly draw each character on the parchment, explaining this is a hymn, the journey of overcoming difficulties. The writing is not just for reading but for chanting. Each character is a sound, vibrating to infuse sacred energy into space. The background music suddenly resonated with a deep, mournful note, like the sound of a stone bell echoing from afar. The incense smoke mixed with the light from the jade, weaving a magical curtain. The viewers seemed to feel the energy spreading, inviting them to touch the carving, humming ancient words. Analua said softly, "Every time I read, faith rises like a tide, pushing away all fear. The memories on the wall are not dead. They come alive in every breath of the teller." The priest nodded, his eyes filled with tears. "I am the keeper, the transmitter, so that thousands of generations to come will still hear the whispers of the stone." When the night truly fell, two figures quietly left the room. The camera panned back to the wall. The carvings were now just lifeless blocks of stone with a faint glow from the last incense stick. The narrator whispered, "This wall, through many lifetimes, still records the mark of immortal belief. Even if time forgets, the memory remains intact in each engraving. And when you leave here, do not forget to carry that mark in your heart." The fire and the priest disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind them a short trail of candlelight and smoke. A final whisper rang out invitingly, "Listen carefully, for there are many secrets in the inscriptions yet to be told." When you are ready, press OK to journey to the brief festival of darkness, where faith and ritual blend in a mystical resonance.
Part 7. The short, dark festival as the night fell. The last rays of the eclipse disappeared. The Maya jungle sky was lit up with thousands of stars, sparkling like silver pearls falling from the crescent moon. Each star seemed to whisper quietly, "Awake, heart of light." And in the midst of that silence, the green torches from the fire procession were still smoldering, emitting a thin layer of smoke, guiding hundreds of purple-robed figures, followers of the sun god, into the temple courtyard. The drumbeats resounded rapidly, like an invitation to the heartbeat of the universe. Boom, boom, boom. Each drumbeat was an expression of gratitude, a hope to overcome the darkness, The participants swayed to the rhythm of the drums, holding green torches, drawing circles of light on the ground. The sounds of wooden flutes and horns blended together, creating a melody that was both sobbing and resounding, like a symphony, welcoming the return of the sun. Sad, yet full of aspiration, in the middle of the circle of fire, the priest and firelight stood facing each other, the firelight reflecting in their eyes like two bright stars. Firelight poured a stream of sacred spring water into the stone basin, then held the torch and dipped it gently into the basin. On the fire touched the water, thousands of blue sparks flickered, and the smoke rose high, swirling together into dimly lit clouds. The priest solemnly shouted, "Oh, brief darkness, I invite you to dance with me, to understand that there is no eternal darkness, only eternal light." The surrounding audience clapped their hands to the beat of the drums, as if to support the declaration. They entered the fire dance ritual, spinning with the torchlight, each step rhythmically creating the shape of a lotus flower of prayer. That flower of light, under the quiet night sky, was as radiant as a symbol of the Mayan belief, even if it falls into darkness for a moment. Life still revolves and is reborn. The drums stopped, giving way to a moment of silence. A pair of dancers appeared in the middle of the circle of fire. They wore cloaks embroidered with the fire snake and the divine bird, their fiery whips swaying in time with the dance. The dance was both mysterious and elegant, depicting the story of the sun and darkness. When the light plunged into the abyss, it encountered the fire snake, the power of darkness. But then, under the guidance of the divine bird, the light was reborn, spreading its wings to the sky. The dancing couple gradually increased their rhythm, their hands throwing the fire whips high, letting the blue sparks flicker in the air. The music changed to a higher register. The flute sounded like thunder in the night sky. The audience held their breath to follow each spinning movement, mixed with awe, as the sharp flames drew graceful, curved brackets. The narrator whispered in the audience's ears, "Do you feel the power of the connection between the two forces? When darkness and light revolve, they do not destroy each other, but complement and guide each other to create a harmonious universe." After the dance, the participants received colorful paper flowers engraved with Mayan symbols, a sun symbol, a moon symbol, a fire snake symbol. They placed the flowers on their chests, placed their hands over their hearts, and chanted in unison, E-H Malo, Amalo. Rough translation, light, light. The sound echoed, creating a wave of faith that spread throughout the space, as if everyone's hearts were beating in unison. Kanilua raised the green gem to his forehead, Kwa, then rotated it 3 times around his head, as if performing a 9-year ceremony. With the sad music mixed with a bit of encouragement, he shared with the community, "My brother's darkness is but a short nap of the sun. But it is also in that moment that we see the light within. Remember, whenever you are afraid, light, fire in your heart, there is no eternal night." The crowd erupted into cheers again, the flickering torches held high like a moving sea of stars. All worries and fears seemed to melt away in the joy, giving way to a deep sense of connection. The drums continued to whistle, 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 then subsided like the last breath of the night, before the inner dawn blossomed in the corner of the temple courtyard. The priest placed the pearl in a cylindrical stone block, the stone vein platform where the essence of the festival was kept. The firelight from the pearl illuminated the grooves, making the carvings of the sun and the divine bird stand out. He smiled, then raised his hand to point to the sky and instructed, "Whenever darkness comes knocking at the door of your heart, look up to the sky. Remember this day. Remember the fire dance and the chant, Ma-Lo. It will be the guiding light." The gentle sound of the wooden flute echoed, blending with the sound of the drums like a lullaby. Gradually, the group dispersed, but each step still maintained the rhythm of the drums. The torches flickered in the yard, then gradually went out as everyone returned home, carrying with them the flame of faith in their hearts. In the distance, the first light of dawn, a fragile orange-red streak, peeked through the treetops. The brief festival of darkness had ended, but its echoes lingered in the air. The narrator softly concluded, "Listen to the drumbeat in your soul. Keep the fire burning inside you. And when you're ready, join us in Part 8, The Sound of Terror, to explore the deepest emotions of the Maya people in the moment of harmony with nature." Part 8, The Sound of Horror. The Maya night seemed to shrink as the moon covered the sun. A moment of darkness that enveloped everything. In the human mind, the deepest fear suddenly arose. It was not just absolute silence, but the sound of a haunting menace. The priest stood still before the stone platform, his eyes half closed, listening to every breath of the universe. The wind in the forest fell silent, not blowing through the leaves, making the space seem frozen. The usual buzzing of night insects suddenly stopped. Only the distant wails of wild animals could be heard, half calling out to their kind, half lamenting the world about to change. On the other side, Firelight gently tightened his grip on the torch handle, his face showing tension but also determination. The narrator's voice hums, a bit sad but still invites the listener to enter the sound space. In this moment, the sounds of the visible world seem to retreat, giving way to echoes from the invisible, the whispers of the gods, the roars of the night, and the pounding of our own hearts. Suddenly, a bronze gong sounded in the distance. It was unclear whether it was from the ceremonial band or the giant forest itself that was trembling. The gong was long and shrill, like a talisman guarding the gate between two worlds. A coo, the sound reverberated throughout the canopy of the forest, the leaves rustling in waves, emitting a strange rah-rah sound, as if an invisible dancer was gliding through the air. The stress of the sound penetrates the mind, awakening ancient memories. Ancient priests once stood here, listening to the gongs, calling the moon and the sun, praying for peace. The gongs, mixed with the horn music, made it impossible for the audience, to distinguish the boundary between reality and dream. The sound then suddenly stopped, leaving a tense, suffocating silence. In that silence, one could hear one's own heart pounding, mixed with the breathing echoes of thousands of other creatures, from humans to all the insects, birds, and animals in the forest. Each heartbeat was like an invisible drum, resonating underground, in sync with the earth's heartbeat. The voice whispered, "Listen, the heart of the universe is whispering. I still exist. I still wake. Though the darkness is thick, the light within never goes out." Suddenly, a series of dry screams echoed from deep within the forest, perhaps a wild beast in panic, or an ancient spirit caught in the dark vortex. The dry sound sent a chill down the listener's nose, as if every thread of fear was trembling. The priest closed his eyes and bowed his head, as if to absorb the terror and transform it into the loving energy of compassion. Firelight leaned close to the priest's ear and whispered an encouraging word. "The sound of fear is only a prelude. Let it lead us into the symphony of hope." Then he raised his voice to chant the ancient prayer, each word deep and warm, blending into the gloomy atmosphere. N9CHE, Kin-AM-TUUN, UM-IL-CHOKOKEN. O eternal light, please return. Sun power. The chanting slowly permeated the heart, shaking every speck of dust in the air, creating a magical wave of vibration. Incense smoke swirled around the green torch of the fire, emitting a warm fragrance, spelling some of the coldness of the darkness, just when it seemed like all sounds had fallen into absolute silence. Hundreds of sea snail shells were suddenly arranged in a circle of the underworld, spinning, creating a steady, rustling sound like the long sigh of the ancient ocean. The rustling of the snails signaled the presence of water spirits for tomorrow, but also deeply imprinted in the Mayan psyche. That sound, combined with the chanting and the heartbeat, harmonizing into a majestic symphony of the eclipse night. There is fear reigning, there is a surge of prayer, and there is an undying faith that pushes people to overcome the darkness. The voice is captivating in that chaotic song. We no longer have strangers or acquaintances, no longer have boundaries between the world and the fairyland. All souls join in the same rhythm, together, resounding the song of faith. Finally, as the moon began to retreat, its halo gradually appearing, the bronze gongs rang out a solemn note of finale to the terrifying yet joyful symphony. The sound melted into the night, like a reminder, darkness is temporary.
Part 9.
Light
Stories of the
always
elderly.
returns.
The second morning after the eclipse,
Sun
the gentle
awoke
sunlight
suddenly,
spread over the moss-covered
triumphant.
tiled roof of the Maya village on the edge of the forest. On the porch of the thatched house, old Kanakum, an elderly man with hair as white as the morning dew, sat leaning on a simple wooden chair. He placed an old buffalo hide drum next to it, tapping each beat gently, making the sound of boom boom echo softly in the space. His eyes sparkled with joy, as if containing a treasure trove of memories. The children gathered below, holding pink seashells, souvenirs of the night's festivities. They looked at him intently, waiting for his words. Old Kanakum cleared his throat, his voice warm and playful. Little sparks of light, yesterday you danced with torches in the festival of brief darkness. But in the old days, before our ancestors carved walls or built temples, there were also terrifying crescent moon nights like this. Sit closer and let me tell you the story of our ancestors. He tilted his head to look through the foliage, where a few yellow leaves were falling, then continued. Back then, when I was a child, the night of a solar eclipse caused chaos in the village. Some people thought the sun had been taken by evil spirits. Others believed the souls of the dead had returned to punish them. Everyone hurriedly lit fires, beat gongs, and beat drums to chase away the darkness. The drums kept beating for 7 nights, because they were afraid that if the fire went out, the light would never return. The little boy named Iluni reached out to touch his white hair and timidly asked, "Grandpa, did anyone really see a ghost that night?" Old Kanakum smiled softly, his eyes dreamy. No one has ever seen a real ghost, but in the dark, hearing the wind whistling through the thatched roof, the sounds of the wild forest, people think it is the footsteps of a ghost. At that time, the human mind is easily confused, turning fear into a form. That is the first lesson. Sometimes, fear itself creates a darkness that is bigger than the real darkness. The sound of canaries flying over the thatched roof punctuated his words. Old Kanakum looked up at the clear sky and sighed. Then one day, there was a village girl, named whose eyes were as bright as the stars. She was not afraid of the dark, but came before the fire and played an ancient song. The rhythm was gentle, like lulling the sun to sleep, and strangely, people felt at peace. They stopped beating their drums, listening to the song resounding, "We sleep to return stronger." He tapped the drum strings gently, slowly, boom, boom, boom. Continuing the story began by inviting each house to bring out a stick of incense, kneel in the courtyard, and chant a short chant. The chant was different from a cry of fear. It rang out like a prayer. "I believe the light will return," and indeed, when she finished singing, the sun rose after only 3 drum beats, not because of a miracle but because faith had awakened hope. A gentle breeze blew, the leaf swirled and fell onto the straw mat at his feet. Old Kanakum bent down to pick it up, placed it on his knee, and continued, "I remember that day clearly. The footprints on the ash-streaked trail, traces of 1,000 unquenched fires, the inscriptions on the temple walls. Later added to them were the symbols of the song. They said, 'Music is the lullaby of the universe.' It was the sound of faith. Louder than the screams and roars of the jungle. The children were attentive, their eyes wide open. One child sat timidly and asked, 'Grandpa, can music dispel the darkness forever?' Old Kanakum smiled kindly, placing his hand on her shoulder. Music does not drive away the darkness. It teaches us to stop being afraid, to realize that everything lost will return. When we sing our faith, we light up our own inner light. Darkness cannot bury the heart that is already lit." He pointed to the path leading into the forest. "That path where I walked through the forest with that night is the entrance to the ancient temple. There, on the cliff, the words to the song have been carved. It reads Lullaby of Awakening. Every time an eclipse comes, the entire village sings that lullaby and confidently prepares to face the night." Little Kim sighed excitedly. "Grandpa, can you teach us that lullaby?" Old Kanakum nodded, his voice warm. "Okay, but first, you must understand. A lullaby is not just a song, but the beat of a common heart. When you sing it, put your hand on your chest and feel each breath. Only then will you be able to transmit confidence." He closed his eyes and hummed a lullaby. mahlo, mahlo. The lullaby was clear and echoed in the peaceful village morning. The children placed their hands on their chests and hummed along, their eyes filled with faith. Old Canicum gently beat the drum, boom, boom, giving strength to the immature but sincere singing. Finally, he smiled, his voice whispering like a legend. The sound of the old story, of the lullaby that awakens, will follow you all your life. When darkness falls, sing it, and you will never be alone. The camera slowly pulls back, leaving behind the image of old Canicum and his children. The drums, the conch shells, and the legendary lullaby resounding loudly in the middle of the Maya village. The narrative ends, opening an invitation for the next part. Once you have absorbed the echoes of the legend, press OK to enter Part 10, The Untold Mysteries, revealing the never-before-deciphered astronomical symbols. Part 10, Untold Mysteries. As the third light of dawn after the eclipse slowly rose over the tiled roof of the temple, the priest and firelight were still working diligently at the rickety wooden table in the middle of the inner courtyard. On the parchment spread out before them, hundreds of astronomical characters were dotted across the surface like open books that had never been opened. These lines, covered with dust by time, still retained their mysteriousness, drawing a map of the Mayan sky, but there were blurred spots and characters like fading rainbows that no one had yet deciphered. The priest looked up at the sky, his brows furrowed as the pale clouds passed by. He raised his hand and pointed to a cluster of characters in the corner of the paper, shaped like a broken sickle surrounded by 5 small dots. Look, this mark appears only once in a 300-year cycle. It marks a rare moment of conjunction between the moon, the sun, and the serpent star. But the true meaning of the 5 dots, the 5 spirits or the 5 prayers of the ancestors, remains a mystery. Analua bowed his head to look at the green gem under the sunlight, then held it up horizontally to compare it with each character. Perhaps this is a message for those who know how to light the fire in their hearts. 5 dots, a 6th flame, and a 300-year cycle. All of this comes together like a cosmic problem. But what does the number 6, the 6th flame, symbolize? The power of the community or the power of the individual? He chuckled lightly, mischievously. If I understand this mystery, I can predict the next eclipse with absolute accuracy. But is that what the Maya desired most? The priest tapped the wooden pen lightly on the parchment. The tapping sounds echoed. They not only track the celestial bodies to measure time, but also to instill faith in the future. The untold mystery is a lesson for posterity. Don't just look at the numbers, but look at the hope hidden behind those numbers. The camera zooms in to another corner of the parchment, where there is a drawing of 3 intertwined spirals. Each spiral bears a symbol corresponding to an element: earth, water, and fire. But where the 3 spirals converge is an empty space, inviting the hand to touch it and reveal the secret. The narrator's voice whispers directly into the audience's consciousness. The 4th vortex, that void, is where the invisible journey is marked. Some say it is the door to the spirit world. Others believe it is a repository of cosmic energy, but no one dares to touch it, for fear of awakening the unforeseen. The priest closed his eyes, slowly drew 3 circles on a new piece of white paper, then carefully marked the empty space with a red dot. He said slowly, "I will call this the faith gap. Because only when we have the courage to put our hands on faith can we discover our full strength." Analua turned to each of the surrounding disciples, his eyes blazing with determination. Remember this lesson. Every mystery, no matter how profound, begins with faith. When we believe, we are not afraid of the invisible void. We see it as a hole to lean on, a hole to grow new energy. The space in the inner courtyard suddenly became quiet. Only the sound of the wind rustling through the ancient tiled roof and the sound of everyone's heart beating faster. A young disciple timidly asked, "Master, what about the tiny characters around the 3 swirls?" The priest smiled gently, his voice warm. "It is a mixture of curses and prayers. A curse to banish the darkness, a prayer to call back the light. Each character is a breath of the ancestors. When you carve that character, you carve their faith into yourself." The camera slowly rotates, revealing a window with a pattern of fiery snakes. Sunlight shines through the pattern and shines on the parchment, making the contrasting white characters on the brown background seem to dance in the light. The narrator's voice penetrates the audience's heart. In the light, every letter speaks its own voice. Let your eyes listen, and your heart beat with their rhythm. Finally, the priest took the parchment, gently rolled it up, and placed it in the bone-inlaid wooden box. He turned to Firelight and said slowly, "These untold mysteries will lead us to the next part of the journey, where the sacred lullaby and song are engraved in space. To awaken the sleeping sun, the background music hums a sad melody, then changes to a gentle, encouraging melody. The scene slowly fades, leaving only the wooden box with the inscription "Empty Hole of Faith" shining in the sunset. A final whisper is heard. When you are ready, tap OK to join the sacred music of the Divine Lullaby. Part 11 of the legendary Maya journey. Part 11, the Divine Lullaby. As the last rays of sunset sank behind the distant mountains, the Maya temple grounds were bathed in a deep purple. The wisps of incense smoke traced faint curves in the still air, like a musical frame waiting for a sacred melody. In the middle of the courtyard, the high priest placed the lithophone, an ancient instrument carved with the image of a fire serpent and a constellation, on a magnificent platform. Anhalua knelt beside it, holding a shimmering green gem. The first sound came from the priest's fingers, gently touching the tongue of the instrument. Each stone tone resonated like the sound of a thousand-year bell. The sound of the lithophone did not rumble violently, but was soft and clear like a drop of morning dew falling on a tropical leaf. The narrator's voice whispered, "The sound of the lithophone is the lullaby of the earth, gentle, nurturing, and guiding to dreams. Close your eyes, and let your heart sing this sacred song." The opening melody is a repetitive melody, creating a swaying rhythm like the steady breath of the universe. Each note touching the stone, each long note touches the soul, soothes every corner of fear. Under the light of the new moon, the incense smoke drifts, intertwined with the music, like a mist spread by the gods from above. Next, the priest raised his voice and chanted a song on the lithophone that had been passed down through generations. Sa ku na izama, kinam kin, yoka, spin the sun, weave dreams lullaby for the soul not to tire. The melody glides gently through the sky, like a clear stream babbling through the crevices of rocks. Behind each rhyme is a message. The sun sleeps not to lose its light, but to nurture new life. The voice rises, then falls. Lullaby for the soul. As if pulling the listener's heart into a gentle sleep, Analua picked up the pearl, placed it in her palm, and gently shook it to the rhythm of the zith. The pearl's light danced, reflecting off the crevices in the rock, creating a miniature halo, in sync with the music. Each time the pearl touched her skin, a soft sound rang out, like the pearl's heart beating in time. The narrator emphasized, "When your inner light blends with the ancient music, you become the instrument of the universe, vibrating the song of faith." The melody continues with the harmonization of a slender wooden flute. The flute's haunting sound, sometimes high, sometimes low, seems to call the resting soul of the sun. He-ho, he-yaa-oo. We wait for the dawn dreams grow into life. The sound of the flute entwined with the sound of the rocks, like the wind in the forest carrying dry leaves, gently flying up, carrying a lullaby to every soul. At the foot of the temple, the giant tree rustled softly and beckoned. "Keep going, keep singing." The priest smiled, then added a warm harmony with the light sound of a buffalo drum. Boom, boom, boom. "Wandering souls, please come together, by the eternal warm light." The drum beat is slow but steady, like footsteps spreading incense throughout the village. When the drum beat sounds, the invisible audience seems to wake up, feeling the footsteps in the lullaby. The voice narrates gently, "Every drum beat is a community lullaby. No one is alone when all hearts beat as one." The melody gradually reached its climax. The lithophone combined with the flute and drums created a three-dimensional symphony. The priest opened his eyes, looked straight at the invisible audience, and whispered, "Now open your heart. Listen to the song inside. Lull the sun back, and lull yourself to peace." At that moment, the temple courtyard seemed to light up from within. The crescent moon's light blended with the jade fire, creating a soft halo around the high priest. All sounds died down, leaving only the sound of light, even breathing, like a final harmony of peace. Finally, the priest poured more sacred spring water onto the gem. The sound of the water hitting the stone made a soft sound, like a light punctuation to the song, slowly drifting into a dream. "Dawn calls me to wake up." This song will still echo in your heart, though the darkness returns. Sing the lullaby of faith, and the sun will never sleep. Part 12. The connection between past and present as dawn truly rose. The first rays of sunlight bathed the temple grounds in a golden glow. Firelight and the high priest stood by the display of ancient manuscripts, next to the tablets of modern archaeologists. The early morning breeze blew, carrying the dampness of the jungle, bringing with it the musty smell of parchment and the faint electronic scent of touch screens. The priest gently stroked the characters on the old parchment, then turned his eyes to the numeric chart on the screen. Curves and dots marking eclipse cycles, drawn by a 21st century algorithm. His voice was quiet. "In ancient times, our ancestors measured the solar cycles with the naked eye and the shadow of a compass. They carved marks on stone, drew pictures on parchment, and passed them down orally. Today we use modern equipment, but the goal remains the same: to touch the pulse of the universe." Analua bent down to the small programming table. A line of commands ran through the measurements, determining the exact date and time when the moon would next cover the sun. He looked up, his eyes filled with joy and surprise. "According to this computer, the next total solar eclipse at the temple complex will fall on May 3, 2123. But the ancients also carved a rarer cycle, about 26,000 years, the cycle of the dragon sun that gives us a deep sense of the eternal scale of time." The priest leaned over to look at the graph. "Look at this blue swirl." He pointed to the rippled curve on the screen. "Somewhere I see the traces of the 3 earth-water-fire spirals on the ancient parchment. Technology has clarified the shape, but the ancient character still retains its appeal. It is not just a number, but a story of faith. In every line of machine code, The breadth of traditional values still echoes. In every character carved on stone, the desire of modern science still lies hidden. That is the endless connection between the past and the present. Suddenly, Ana Lua jumped up, pointing at the 3D map of the temple scanned by the laser sensor. "Master, look. The east window of the shrine is designed so that the sunlight will hit the stone pedestal on the day of the solar eclipse." The Maya not only built the temple, they also used their knowledge of mathematics and astronomy to create this sacred structure. The priest smiled, his eyes sparkling. "Yes, that stone pedestal is a giant compass. The light passes through the cracks and falls onto the table, drawing an eclipse on the stone like a natural clock. Today we use technology to recreate it, but the heart of the work is still a strong belief. Today's science gives us a new language to talk with the ancients, and the ancients give us a wonderful secret. When you understand, respect. When you wonder, learn. And when you find out, share." Next, Ana Lua led everyone to a corner containing a newly excavated treasure, a cube-shaped stone stele engraved with a series of astronomical characters and a time map. He gently touched the stele, then smiled. "You see, this stele was buried for millennia. When it was unearthed, it contained the message. When you look, the sky will show you the way," the priest added today. Knowing how to see also means knowing how to use tools, compasses, lenses, sensors, algorithms, but don't forget, in the end we still need the eyes of the heart to listen to the heartbeat of the universe. As technology revives ancient characters, the Maya mark lives not only on stone, but also in the hearts of people today. That is our mission: to preserve, transmit, and continue. Finally, the priest and firelight stood on top of the stone platform, looking towards the horizon. The past teaches us faith. The present gives us tools. The future gives us answers. Unite the three, and we will gain a deeper understanding of the eternal journey of the sun. Part 13. Astronomical Dance. The Maya forest night was as quiet as a black velvet curtain, with only the rustling of leaves and the synchronized breathing of all creatures. On a stone observatory located alone in the middle of the jungle, the priest placed a handmade telescope made from bamboo tubes and thin glass lenses, a legacy of ancient astronomers. Ana Lua stood next to him, holding a green gem to reflect the moonlight, helping to illuminate the delicate drawings carved on the stone pedestal. The eagle's wings constellation, the serpent constellation, and a miniature eclipse circle. The night not only covered the landscape but also displayed a galaxy of thousands of stars, drawing a sparkling dance floor for the priest and the fire. The narrator's voice rang out like an invitation. "Welcome to the astronomical dance, where planets, stars, and moons dance to the rhythm of the universe. Join us on the starry floor to witness the meeting of mathematics and poetry." The priest peered through the lens, adjusted the focus, and softly muttered, 0.78 degrees. 0.79 degrees. The synodic period of Venus and the moon is 584 Mayan days. But over there, the draconic period, the period of the orbital conjunction, gives us 346 days. He quickly wrote on the parchment, Venus-Moon, 584 days. Orbital intersection, 346 days. Under the moonlight, the numbers glowed like sparkling light. The narrator whispered, "Every number is a step, every calculation is a dance." The Maya didn't just count the days, they let mathematics guide their hearts. Light carefully placed the gem under the stone pedestal. The gem's light passed through the gap, shining directly on a small engraved circle. The light was like a magic wand, pointing at the symbol Kawalahau, the supreme sun god. He breathed softly. "The sun god is inviting us to join the dance." The sun, the center of the dance. Earth, the revolving dance floor. The moon, the accompanying dancer. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. A diverse array of dance partners. In the astronomical dance, no one dances alone. Each celestial body weaves together a graceful dance, creating a cosmic symphony. The priest turned back, inviting firelight to observe the constellation Serpent. According to the sidereal cycle, he pointed to the star carving. Serpent returns to its original position every 365.256 days. Jupiter, on the other hand, passes through the sky like a distinguished guest, visiting our feast and then departing. Ana Lua smiled and said, "Master, some people compare Jupiter to a dancer who dances between the main dances, creating the highlight for the galactic party." The priest nodded. "That's right. Jupiter is the master conductor, making every dance beat harmonious." The drums suddenly beat in a rush. The priest made a sign, then slowly said, "Pay attention. Prepare for the sublime turn, the eclipse, the moment when the moon covers the sun, creating a silver halo." He quickly drew a small drawing on the parchment, simulating the intersection of the moon and sun's orbits. At that moment of intersection, the entire dance floor paused, every dancer silently bowing to the darkness before blossoming again in a dance of light. Beside it, the green gem suddenly glowed brightly, spreading like a torch across the temple courtyard. Ana Lua shouted, "Everyone look!" The projector hidden in the stone pedestal projected a starry sky simulating the corona, the silver halo surrounding the moon. The light reflected off the stone, drawing a shimmering ring of fire. The priest lifted a pair of manual compasses, measured the angular distance between the two Hyades stars in the constellation Taurus, and wrote 2.42 degrees. He continued, when we dot these stars on the parchment, we draw a map to guide the moon to accurately locate the eclipse. The background music changes to the gentle melody of a lithophone, interspersed with flutes and drums, creating a dance of the four seasons. Spring, summer, fall, winter. That forms an astronomical dance. The narrator emphasizes, mathematics is not dry when it is the heartbeat of the universe. It harmonizes with music, with art, and with the human heart. The priest suddenly began to hum to ancient Mayan verses that astronomers had passed down. The stars revolved, weaving the years, the heartbeat of the universe, the eternal music. That sound lingered on the background of the drumbeat, and the rising incense smoke mixed with the jade light. The whole temple yard seemed to wake up, vibrating with each beat, the beat of the footsteps prelude to the dawn dance. Finally, the priest folded the parchment, placed it in a wooden box engraved with the characters Va Trong Theon Von, and then turned back to invite the archaeological community, students, and invisible spectators. The astronomical dance is not just for accomplished astronomers, but for any soul who longs to dance with the universe. When you understand the rhythm, let your heart join the dance of the stars. Part 14. Silent Legacy. After generations of ritual and ceremony, when the last rays of the sun had receded into the past, the Maya legacy remained not just the majestic carvings on the cliffs, but the silent breath that permeated each tile and each grain of old dust. On a gentle morning, as the sunlight poured softly on the moss-covered stone slabs, the priest led a group of students and disciples around the temple courtyard, pointing out the delicate cracks, remnants of millennia of carving. He gently reached out to touch the fire snake scales carved on the pillar, his fingers sliding over each stone grain, feeling the gentle vibration. This is the echo of time, the priest whispered. An echo does not need sound to be valuable, but rather the persistence and endurance imprinted on stone, like a golden thread running through the veins of faith. Analua smiled, picked up the green gem from the master's hand, and placed it gently in the palm of the youngest disciple. Legacy is not in the object, but in the heart, he said. As you hold this pearl, keep faith and curiosity. That is the pearl that will last forever. Each crack is a chapter in the annals of civilization. Though small, they tell the story of the stone carver. The story of the long night filled with the drumbeats and the lullaby of the ancient priest. The priest then led everyone into the outdoor library, a series of small stone tablets engraved with the names of priests, firelight, and others who contributed to the festival tradition. Amid the slanted lines, he pointed to a faded name. This is the name of Huntpackle, who restored the first rite after the decline. Huntpackle is no more, but his name lives on through chants and lullabies of awakening. Analua added, her voice gentle. When we carve someone's name in stone, we give them immortality. But when we sing lullabies and tell stories about them, we keep their spirit in our hearts. The surrounding space was silent. Only the light footsteps of the group of guests remained, sounding like a steady heartbeat. The narrator's voice whispered, the silent heritage is not noisy. It is in the breath of the giant tree, in the sound of the first birds of the season, in the thin streak of incense smoke that paints a quiet space. Suddenly a gentle breeze blew through the leaves, lifting the cloth covering the mysterious constellation that we left unseen in Part 10. Under the morning sunlight, the colors depicted stood out, the silver of the serpent, the gold of the sun, the blue of the cycle of faith. The priest held his disciple's hand tightly. Never before has tradition been so alive, he said. Heritage light is not just an object, but the memories and emotions we carry with us. The students observed, took notes, and bowed before the carving, as if they were reading the whispers of Hunpakelev and of countless generations. The voice was sad but full of emotion. Legacy is not just a testament to the past, but an invitation to the future. When we look at this carving, we not only understand the past, but also look forward to a tomorrow where the Maya story continues to be written in the language of science, art, and compassion. Next, Analua invited everyone to touch the restored faith hollow stele, then gently tapped the gem on the stell's surface. The sound of it hitting the stone echoed softly like a wistful reminder. That sound, however small, resonates louder than any explanation, he said in a deep voice. It reminds us that our legacy lives only when we continue to believe, continue to act, and continue to tell the story. The camera panned to the corner of the modern showroom where local artists were using 3D scanning pens to recreate the fiery snake and divine bird motifs onto bioplastic prints. Under the LED lights, each line became sharp but did not lose the original spirit, the priest observed, patting Analua's shoulder. Today's technology is an extension of our ancestors. When we use technology with passion, we carry our heritage further and touch the hearts of more people. Firelight replied with an encouraging smile. Think of it as a musical passage, from stone to parchment to digital data. While the language changes, the legacy remains the same. At the end of the session, the priest and Firelight led the group to the central stone pedestal, where the wooden box containing the green gem was placed. Firelight opened the lid and placed the gem between 3 stone pillars, each named after a part of the journey: Whispering Dawn, Divine Lullaby, and Astronomical Dance. "The 3 stone pillars are like 3 lighthouses," said the priest, guiding anyone seeking the silent legacy of the Maya. A silent legacy does not wait for praise. It lives in the actions, in the words, in the aspirations of each generation. When the Maya carved stone, they did not simply carve characters, but carved an invitation for the next generation to keep the flame of faith alive. Part 15. Peaceful sleep under the moonlight as night fell, leaving only a crescent moon hanging in the sky. The Maya temple grounds were bathed in a dreamy gray. The priest and the fire had completed their sacred journey, back and forth through the eclipse story. Through the rituals, lullabies, and cosmic dances, now they returned to the central stone pedestal where the shimmering blue gem rested between 3 stone pillars to bid a final farewell to the Maya night. The priest placed his hand on the gem and whispered as if talking to the spirit of the sun. "O King of Light, more than once have we sent you to sleep, and more than once have we welcomed you back. Now it is time for you to rest peacefully under the new moon, to gather your life force, to prepare for a new journey." Analua knelt down beside him, his eyes turned to the sky, where the thin layer of cloud suddenly revealed tiny stars like fireflies in the dark night. He gently uttered a loving prayer. "Silver moon, please illuminate this sleep with your gentle light. Keep mortal souls at rest, so that under this constellation we may rest in peace." In the silence, the delicate sound of a wooden flute rang out, the notes falling like snowflakes, falling silently without moving. The melody was the last lullaby passed down from ancient times. Hia, oh, moon, bring sleep to me. O stars, paint dreams on the night sky. The sound was like a cool breeze, sweeping away all worries and the echoes of the grand ceremony, leaving only a sense of peace. Under the faint moonlight, the incense smoke floated in a circle around the stone pedestal, like a sacred blanket covering the gem and the hearts of the witnesses. The priest pumped a warm breath into the gem, then placed it on the stone pedestal. The crackling sound was as small as the sound of dry leaves falling. He chuckled softly, his voice warm. "The sun sleeps silently, but not alone. We still stay awake, still guard, still pray. When the sun wakes tomorrow morning, this gem will continue its journey of spreading fire." Anhua lifted the hem of his cloak, lifted the cloth at the foot of the well on the stone pedestal, revealing the last Mayan characters, the words "Please come home," an invitation for the sun not to forget to return. He looked at it, his eyes sad but peaceful. The last letters of love. Love for the sun, love for the moon, love for the earth, and love for ourselves, the small ones who dare to keep up with the universe. At the last moment, the priest leaned toward the invisible audience, his voice deep and warm. "A peaceful sleep is not the end. It is the beginning of every desire, every hope to awaken with the morning sun. Carry the Maya night in your soul, so that every sleep of yours will be lulled by the sacred song of the universe." Under the pale moonlight, the 2 spiritual masters stepped back together, leaving the stage to the gradually graying night. The flute ended softly, like the lights out of a 100-year-old play. In the quiet sky, the crescent moon hung there, shining brightly as proof. Peaceful sleep still kept its light in the deep, and then, under the quiet crescent moon, the legendary Maya journey ended. But the belief and desire to explore still awaken in each of our hearts. Thank you for joining Gait NCC Koyengan to listen to every whisper of the past, every beat of the universe, to preserve and pass on the flame of knowledge together. If you also feel your heart warmed by this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Gait NCC Koyen channel so you don't miss the next journeys. See you in new dewdrops, where the legendary source is waiting for us to discover.